Game Boy Advance.
急げネット君プラグイントランスミッション未来をデリートさせるなゲームボーイアドバンスインストールいつでも僕らは繋がっているバトルネットワーク6万 X
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, we're answering the most important question in the history of Retro Rebound. You know what that question is? Is Megaman Battle Network really that good? You know who you're asking right now, ladies and gentlemen? You know who you are asking the most biased source on planet Earth when it comes to Mega Man, specifically Battle Network. I will answer this question right up front before I go on a whole spiel. Yes, it is that good. And I'm here to represent the Battle Network fandom because for far too long have I seen this series, number one, not be champion enough, but number two is I remember as I watched the reviews come out for Battle Network 1, 2, and 3. By the time the trilogy was done, reviewers had decided, that's it, we're moving on. For those who don't know, there are 6 Battle Network games, and they came out year after year after year after year. It was a pretty intense phase. I loved it, but reviewers were starting to get fatigued. There's not enough here. But I just love the world of Battle Network so much. I love the combat, and I'm here just to scream from the mountaintop why this series rocks. Yes, before you ask, we're going to go through all 6 leading up to the launch of the Battle Network Legacy Collection. Whether we do all 6 of them really close by or we do them across a couple of months, I just want to make sure I talk about all 6 Battle Network games leading into the release of Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, which then, yes, we will definitely review here on this channel, and I cannot wait. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the first game to start things off. If you're new here, you're into Mega Man, you're into retrospective, nostalgic content, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. Let's begin with a prestigious complete in-box experience. What you're looking at here is a very expensive video game. Now, I'm curious what the price will be by the time the Legacy Collection does come out, because still things like Mega Man Zero on Game Boy Advance Complete in Box was going for around $100, even though the Zero Collection existed. So I don't think it's going to tank the value. I don't know if it's going to raise the value either, but when I bought this, I got it for about 90 bucks, which is a steal, especially in this condition. And as you can see, it got the acrylic treatment. Very few games get the acrylic treatment on my shelf because it takes up so much, but you bet your butt Battle Network, all of them got the acrylic treatment. So anyway, this one is now going for, last I saw, 300, like 250, 300, depending on where you go, who you're asking, but it's expensive. The back says Mega Man Battle Network. In the future, a young net battler named Lan boots his personal exploration terminal, PET, and prepares to hack into the network to battle net crime. Lan's PET is no ordinary network navigator. It's Megaman.exe, the cyber identity which infiltrates the crime-ridden network to battle destructive computer viruses, defeat viruses in real time, and collect battle chip program data containing valuable weapon data and critical system info. Collect over 175 battle chips to help Lan and Megaman.exe restore peace and order to the network in a futuristic cyber adventure starring Mega Man. And as I said, collect valuable chips, over 175, and trading battle chips with friends. And you can see here, there's the gameplay screenshots. It looks great. Let's slide off the top and get this bad boy out of the acrylic case. Yeah, like I said, this thing is in minty condition, so I take really good care of it like it's my firstborn. But anyway, here at the top, you're going to get a nice look at the cartridge here. This is also in pristine condition. You'll see, like, on the bottom here, not much wear and tear from going in and out of the Game Boy Advance. You never really see it on the front here because the label and the plastic's different, but the back, usually this glossy part will start to get a lot of scratches on it as it enters and exits the cartridge slot for the Game Boy Advance. But more importantly, we got to take a look at the manual, because that's all there is outside of the precautions booklet. The manual for this, of course, it's fantastic. So, as always in Mega Man, in the year 20XX, the rapid advance of internet technology has created the network age. Everyone now carries a portable exploration device called the PET. And you can see here just the art for Mega Man Battle Network is awesome. Like, it's some of my favorite in all of gaming. I just love the way it manages to capture like a cyber future while also looking very early 2000s. Like, look at how Land dresses here with the short shorts, the orange vest, the rollerblades. I don't know, there's something about it like that clearly was made in the early 2000s, of course, so that's why there is that fashion. But then you look at Megaman.exe and so on, you see just how futuristic it is. But I just cannot get enough of this game. It's so inspirational to me, and the art here is a big reason why. So that's pretty much what you're looking at for a complete in-box copy. Hard to come by, especially at a cheap price. But now I've delayed long enough. Let's talk about the actual game and why, yes, it is that good. There's so many places that I truly want to begin with this one. And I think if I were to put my finger on one thing that I love about Mega Man Battle Network, it's the world. So the way you explore the world in Battle Network is very different from, I think, really many video games out there. So what'll happen is you'll go to electronic devices all around the world. Like, one of the first things you can interact with in the game is your oven in your house. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but just hear me out. What'll happen is there's this whole entire network, literal network, and all these devices are pretty much starting points for that entire network. So remember what I said about the oven? You can what's called jack into all of these electronic devices, and in the start of the game you'll jack into your oven and you'll start in a network in a certain part where your oven is connected to the overall broader network. And I just think that idea is cool, that something like your TV remote in your house is actually connected to your oven, and they all share a similar network which connects to a much broader network. A much more broad example of that is like you can find, for example, where your friends live, and you can go into their computers and jack in, and everyone has different starting points from their ports in their house. Like, I just love the way it takes the internet and personifies it a bit. It materializes it and puts it before you in a way that's so inventive, I think. And again, given that it's a Game Boy Advance game, I do appreciate that freedom of exploration. It's not like you're going to be going all over this open world, but I just think it's cool that to maybe get behind some area and find some unique loot, you're going to go ahead and sneak into someone's house and then jack into their computer and then go through the back route there to then get to this unique piece of loot, or more zenny, something along those lines. I just like that level of exploration. I think it's intimate, which if you've heard me talk about Bethesda Game Studios games are arcane games, you'll know I love that type of exploration where you can just kind of interact with everything. It's just a style of game design I'm always a sucker for. So that's like the first thing I think of, is just the concept of jacking in. But why you're jacking in is, as it says on the back of the box, you have Megaman.exe with you, and you're going to fight cybercrime. So not everyone's jacking into this network to do good. There are some evildoers. In fact, there's this villain group called the WWW. Get it? Like, play on words there. They're called the World 3, though, which is one of the worst villain group names of all time. But they are pretty much starting to wreak havoc and use the network for evil. And that's where Mega Man and your main character, Lan Hikari, step in to the mix. Now, another thing I always think about with Mega Man Battle Network is the combat here is so good that it's stunning to me that very few games have tried to imitate it. There's One Step from Eden, which definitely took inspiration from Battle Network. And then there is Hero.exe, which I think of, which is being kickstarted right now. I backed it, of course. And there may be one more, but the point being is that this game came out in, let's see here, 2001. So the fact that I can only think of 3 clones, to me, shows how I feel criminally underrated this combat system is. So the way that it functions, for those who are unaware, is it is much like your random encounter system. You're going to be running around, battles begin. Then you're set up on this grid, and you have battle chips. And these are things that you can loot or you can buy in the world itself. And think of them like, I don't know, a deck of cards. Like, you're going to create your deck of battle chips, and they're going to randomize your hand each turn. And while you're spending your turn, there's a timer that's sort of ticking, and you're going to use all your battle chips, like a sword, or you're going to use chips to take up tiles on the enemy side of the screen so that you can move a little bit more and wall them off, hit them with more attacks. You can use your cannon, and you can use rush, you can use special summons. Like, there's so many different things that you can call into battle. And I just love the concept of almost deck building, but it's an action game. And what happens is once your deck is used or your turn is up, then the game will pause and they'll show you your hand again. It's like, okay, what battle chips do you want to load in this time? It's almost like loading a revolver, firing off all the rounds, waiting for your turn to go, and then reloading it again. That's kind of the concept here. And I just, again, think it's so unique and enjoyable. I could spend all day in this combat system. And in fact, they did carry this and then evolve it in a spiritual successor to Battle Network known as Star Force, where instead of the camera being horizontal, it's actually vertical. It's directly behind Megaman in that game. And some people think that's an improvement. I'm more biased, I'd say, towards Battle Network just because of the world and everything. So I like everything it does more by default. Sorry about that. But for me, Battle Network, I like the horizontal camera because I feel I see more of the battlefield, whereas the vertical camera is more like up close and personal. And it's funny, I talk about intimate exploration, but here I am being like, yeah, keep the camera back a little bit. But there's a lot of cool nods and twists to what Mega Man is here. And it's funny because like a lot of people, when they go, oh, I'm a Mega Man fan, your first thought is, oh, the X series, or oh, the classic series. And for me, when I say I'm a Mega Man fan, I'm always talking about this series. Like, I love Zero, I love the X series, although I've missed a couple of games from those respective series. I love X Command Mission, even though I actually never beat that game. It's like my favorite game I've never beat. I gotta go fix that one. Probably this year when I'm on a holiday break, but I digress. This is the series I'm always talking about when I say I'm a Mega Man fan. The way, again, it materializes the internet, I think is just so unique, so different, and so fun. That's not even getting into the music. There's something about the music in this game that brings me to a really comfortable place. Like, we all have our own soundtracks that soothe us, and for me, I think of Battle Network as that game that when I was playing it, I was in 5th grade, and life's just so different back then, right? Not to get all sappy on y'all here, but I mean, this is a nostalgic channel, so sorry, this is what you signed up for, but you think to how simple things used to be, and I love my life, don't get me wrong, but it's one of those things where when I hear that soundtrack, I'm just teleported in a heartbeat. And music has the potential to do that, but nothing to me in video games is more strong than Mega Man Battle Network and KOTOR, because I think of like the bliss of being a young kid and running around just having a ton of fun. And one way I had fun was with some of the spin-off toys that you would see for Mega Man Battle Network, which is, for example, I'll show you here on screen because I did a whole project on this game on my Mr. Matty channel, which is these like battle chips. You could load them into the personal terminals because they actually sold them. And these function more as like Tamagotchis, and you would be able to carry your own Megaman.exe, or you could get Proto Man as well, because I think these came out around the time of Battle Network 5, where there was like a big thing about Mega Man versus Proto Man, but I could be wrong. That just may have been when I discovered it, but they had action figures and everything, because this all connects into Mega Man NT Warrior, which was an anime that came out here in the West. It got a couple of seasons and then closed down, because you may not know it now, especially if you're like a younger gamer, but Mega Man was all the rave in the early 2000s. Like, Capcom was going disgustingly ham with it. People were very burnt out. They were doing X games, X collections, anniversary collections, Battle Network, Zero. Like, there were 3 to 4 Mega Man games dropping a year at some point. Like, they put all their chips on the table. And now with how great Capcom is, I would just love to see them come back, but I understand why they're just reviving everything first. And I like that because, for example, this game is something I would say you really should play. This series is something you should play. But I understand that, like, you don't want to spend like 200 and something bucks on it, because Maddie, you love it, but I don't love $200 getting thrown down the drain if I end up not liking it, which I totally get. So I like that, you know, Capcom is kind of sitting there cooking along here, because I imagine what's next is either Mega Man Legends or probably Star Force. If you're going to do Battle Network, you should probably do Star Force, because they're kind of the same game. I could be wrong, but the Mega Man library is dwindling, and once Capcom's done reviving all that, I'm curious what they're going to do next. But for me, Battle Network just always holds a very special place in my heart, from the toys to the story, which isn't amazing, but it's kind of simple. Again, just taking down this evil organization and taking these classic Mega Man figures and characters that you've seen and putting spins on them. I love, of course, the battle chip system. To me, that's like such a creative system in its own right. It probably spawned my love of card games again, because it's this deck builder style game. And honestly, when you play Battle Network 1, and then even if you were to just leapfrog all the way into 6, it's amazing how much of the core formula is retained, but also how much they evolve it. Because what eventually happens is this game does get sequelitis, as you'll see as we go through the series. Like, they add like 1 or 2 new layers per game, which is why as we get deeper into this series, I'll talk more about the story and like where we're at in the franchise, because I expect that y'all be keeping up a little bit with it, right? Right? You better. Megaman means the world to me, so if you care, you're gonna do it. But yeah, again, this series means so much to me. The art direction means a lot to me. Actually, Udon made a cool art book that I recommend if you like the art direction here in this. They made a whole entire art collection of all the concepts and whatnot for every program you see. And what I will throw out there is if you're a Pokemon fan, look no further. This was the series, as I've said so many times here, but now I can put a face to it. This was the series that took me away from Pokemon. So when everyone was playing, for example, Crystal, Gold, Silver, I hopped in for Gen 3, but then I think I played Diamond and Pearl, but only a little bit. I didn't play Black and White 2. This is where I was. This is where I went to when Pokemon burnt me out. And it's because it's got a similar framework. And oh, make no mistake, as we get to Battle Network 3 and on, they took the Pokemon formula seriously. But that's why there's like a wholesome nature to Battle Network 1 and 2, because that's where they didn't copy Pokemon and start making dual versions. And especially, at least Pokemon could kind of justify it, but I don't think Battle Network had any right trying to do that. But Capcom was money hungry and they were cashing in. But this is where I went, this series, which has similar formulas. Like, you can almost do trainer battles, if you will, within the world of Battle Network. You'll run into other people who own pets and they will say like, hey, do you want to fight? And when you beat them, they'll give you special chips. So there is a benefit to engaging with the world beyond just jacking in and getting loot, like fighting other people, doing special mini bosses. It's just, again, such a really cool world, a really cool series, and I do recommend giving it a look if you have yet to. So that's everything I gotta say on Mega Man Battle Network. I'm gonna kick it your way now because I've certainly rambled enough, but again, shout out to Capcom for one of the most creative series that I think we have here. And if you haven't played it, please do yourself a favor, give it a try at least. I think, based off what I read in the comments, I think a lot of you will dig it, but we'll see. Please fire away down below. Let everyone know how fantastic this series is. If you think it's bad, don't write down below. That's all there is to it. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, take great care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.